Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our regular council meeting on Monday, February the 13th. We are not going into close this evening, so I will read the recommendation that council convenes in open session at 7 p.m. on Monday, February the 13th. May I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Dunstall, seconded by Councillor Martin. All those in favor? Great, that carries. For a moment of reflection, I wanted to talk about the devastating earthquakes that recently were experienced in Turkey and Syria, and are a tragic reminder of the fragility of life and the importance of taking care of each other in times of difficulty. The destruction of property, the displacement and suffering of thousands of people, and the loss of life all demonstrated the need for compassion and support. I encourage any of our able and caring community members to assist in showing support by donating what you can through the reputable agencies such as the Canadian Red Cross. Until February 22nd, the Government of Canada will match donations from individuals to the Earthquake in Turkey and Syria appeal through redcross.ca. Encouraging and reminding everyone to do whatever they can to ensure that those affected are provided with resources necessary to rebuild their lives and communities. Let us use this moment as an opportunity to remember that we are all interconnected, affected by both our successes and our tragedies. We must continue to hold each other up, lean on each other, and take care of one another. I will now move along to Councillor Wilkinson for our territorial land acknowledgement, please.
As we have gathered in Wilmot Township on the traditional territory of the neutral Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Mississauga peoples, we also want to acknowledge the importance of the Dish with One Spoon Covenant, a peace agreement made between Indigenous nations before the Europeans arrived. It characterizes our collective responsibility to each other and Mother Earth. We should take only what we need, leave enough for others, and keep the dish clean. And by acknowledging this covenant in the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, we are reminded of our important connection to this land where we live, learn, and work together as a community.
Thank you. This evening we have no additions to the agenda, so the recommendation is that the agenda as presented for February 13th, 2023 be adopted. May I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Sadhu, seconded by Councillor Martin. All those in favor? And that unanimously carries. And the recommendation for the minutes of the previous meeting is that the minutes of the following meetings be adopted as presented. Regular council meeting, January 30th, 2023, as attached to this agenda. May I please have a mover? Moved by Councillor Cressman, seconded by Councillor Wilkinson. All those in favor? That also passes unanimously. This evening we have no public meetings, but I am happy to announce that we do have two presentations. I just want to remind everyone coming for a presentation that as per the procedural bylaw, any persons making a presentation to council shall be permitted to address council and shall be limited in speaking no more than 10 minutes. As always, all presenters must ensure decorum is followed throughout their presentation. So I will welcome up Jeff Stager, the Director of the Waterloo Federation of Agriculture, to please come and give your presentation.
Well, thank you, Your Worship, for that kind introduction. And congratulations to you and council on your election, and a big thank you to staff for all the hard work they do to make it all work. So it's my pleasure bringing you census information. Our idea is that you're going to make decisions about agriculture over time, and let's have a foundation to start from. What is agriculture? And we can look at what happens in Wilmot Township. So I'd invite you, if you'd like, we're going to look at this here census document here. We're going to look at one item per page at this stage of our presentation. Having said that, let's look at the very first page. It talks about the total number of farms in the Waterloo region. You'll see your home municipality here, Wilmot, and look at 2016 at 255 farms. And, in this particular census, you actually have farm numbers go up. So that's pretty cool. In the region, of course, 1374 farms. Ontario has 49,000. In the Dominion of Canada, 193,000 farms. Our friends, our urban neighbors are quite surprised to see that there's farms in their jurisdiction, so it's always a treat. Let's go to page 2, please. Let's look at this little factoid in the upper right corner. The average age of farm operators in the Waterloo region, it's 49.5 compared to 55.3 for the province. You know what this represents is we have a growing, dynamic industry. It's new people coming along, new ideas, new businesses, so that's good on us. So whatever we've been doing so far has worked. Size of farms, not much information there. We are below the Canadian average because the Canadian average includes mega farms in the west. But these are very profitable farms because we have really great land here and close to markets. On page 3 is the type of farming that we have here. Before I get that far, notice in the top left corner, 2016, we have 45 farms that sold organic products. So cattle ranching and farming is a big deal in the region and in Wilmot Township. And we are, I think, the latest census will show an increase in farms that produce fruits and vegetables and that type of thing, because we have a large 500,000 person municipality we live in, and there's people who would like to buy specialty and unique products that are agricultural in nature. So, and also there's a small factoid at the bottom, renewable energy. A lot of farms rural properties do produce renewable energy, wind turbines and solar panels, and up and coming is things like bioreactors producing natural gas that either goes for cogeneration or producing electricity. So, interesting opportunities. Let's go to the last page. How much business is this? It's in 2016, this latest census here, it shows that in Wilmot you had $139 million of gross receipts. And so that's a significant amount of business. So let's not lose that. Let's grow that even. It's possible, depending on that interesting combination of planning and zoning and that algorithm, that totality of all that. As I pointed out, the backstory is this is a great document. The region does it. We'd like to thank them. Unfortunately, they're about a year behind in the usual creation of this. This census is one cycle too earlier than it should be. And to that end, then, before I forget, the region assures me that they're going to update this thing this year. So, if I don't say any bad words, maybe I'll come back and talk to you about the new latest census when it comes along. This last page I'll bring your attention to is agriculture at a glance. This is a small look at the 2021 census, the latest census that staff from the Federation of Agriculture assembled. And the number of farms went up, as you know, in the left corner, 1,409 farms from the 13 some odd before. And the economic impact is that there's $652 million in farm cash receipts now. And, there's about 4,000 people in the region of Waterloo who get up every day and they milk the cows and plant the corn, and another 20,000 people who do all the stuff it takes. They're veterinarians, they produce food rations, feed rations, they're suppliers of machinery and parts and services. So it's quite a bit that happens there. And just the last thing, at the latest census, 22.5 farms produced renewable energy. So that's the more formal part of my presentation. I'll just finish off with this thing here, and I hope you all have that in front of you on your table. And the idea here is that, after a full day of reading reports, you're obviously going to want to do some recreational reading. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is perfect. It's in the style that most of us really enjoy, which is colors, shapes, and the topics we find our rural neighbors interested in, what happens on the farm. So with that, that's my presentation. I want to thank you so much. Looking forward, we're looking for that latest census to come out. Don't want to forget the most important ask I have. Would it be possible for the township to, as part of each term, look at the census, look at those trends? There's census data for the last 20 years. Are the number of farms going up? Are they going down? You probably deal with census a lot already because, you're going to be looking at demographics, what's our population look at, and making appropriate plans. Why not do the same for agriculture? So that's my ask, and I thank you very much for your attention.
That's great. Thank you very much, Jeff. And I have to say thank you for the second presentation in a week now, because I saw you at our regional council, and I did actually read through the magazine. So I
hope you weren't too bored by me saying it again.
No, I was not.
The same jokes each time. So.
That is okay. Well rehearsed. Councillor Dunstall has a question for you.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Jeff, I spoke to you just before the meeting started, and I just wanted to let you know that canola was developed by Canadian plant scientists and is now the cooking oil choice for billions of people around the world.
Yes.
So I wanted you to know that. Yeah. Also, do you happen to know how many seasonal workers are brought in?
I do not offhand. Some are brought in. We look forward to finding that information and bringing it back to you. And we keep track of your questions and look forward to, when the opportunity is to talk about it, we can talk about such things.
Great, thank you.
But I wouldn't have an idea. Mark, any idea offhand what might be, how many seasonal workers? I don't know. No, so,
Thank you.
But that's a great question. Thank you.
Great. Any other questions, councillors? No? All right. Seeing none, thank you very much again, Jeff, and we look forward to seeing you again in the future.
Yes, the door is open. We're more than glad to sit down and talk things all about farming.
That's great. Thank you. Take care. And now I will call up our next delegation, our next presentation, which is consisting of Nathan Joseph, Holly Bast, and Christine Snyder to present your report regarding, I believe, the ice pads. I do know that there was some confusion earlier about the amount of time, so again, as our procedural bylaw, presenting together would be 10 minutes. I am going to be nice and give you guys a little bit of extra time if you do run over those. So if we can just be mindful of that on both ends, and I will invite you up to come and give your presentation. And perfect, it looks like we have Nathan joining us online, as well as Holly is online too. Oh, no, I'm sorry, Holly. Okay. All right, so
Real
whenever
quick,
you're...
Mayor Sallin,
Yep.
if I could, can we get a brief moment here just to, are all the technical issues sorted out? I could see you trying to get everything sorted.
Great.
Yeah.
So we'll consent, yes, I think we're good.
Okay, excellent, thank you. I didn't want to interrupt you, Jeff, so thanks again.
All right, great, whenever you're ready.
Great. May I start? Everybody hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you. You're good to go.
And the presentation slides are up there?
Oh, hold on a moment. As we said, technical things are sorted and just grabbing that. Okay. All right, we can see your slides now. We just can't see your face when they're up, so if you can just let our clerk know when you need next slide.
Okay, thank you. So I'm here today before council to re-communicate the immediate need for an additional third ice pad in Wilmot. In 2007, the Wilmot Recreational Complex was built and ice time in Wilmot was doubled. The building design never included provisions to increase its ice from 2 to 4 ice pads. Whether it was right or wrong, council supported the 2007 Monteith Brown report to decommission the old New Hamburg ice arena surface. As you can see in the chart here, the 2007 ice schedule, 20 to 30 hours of ice time that could have been filled. Half of the old arena was moved to the WRC. This effectively put Wilmot at almost 100% ice capacity back as far as 2007, with not much room for growth. With 2 ice pads operating, it was projected that by 2016, Wilmot would need a third ice pad. In comparison, at a 2009 population of 22,000 people, Woolwich built their new dual ice pad. Woolwich decided to continue to operate their third St. Jacobs ice pad. Centre Wellington, which is Fergus Alora, North Dumfries, which is Ayr, and Wellesley all did the same and kept their extra ice pads operating. Next slide. In 2020, a third needs study was done identifying the immediate need for additional ice in Wilmot. It was noted from the picture that up to 56 hours were needed by minor hockey immediately. 3 years to gather a request for proposal to spend $600,000 to design a third ice pad attached to the Shout Ice Pad Arena at the WRC was recently not approved by council. The $12 million rink build project presented didn't meet the needs of all its community user groups and didn't include a long-term plan and future arena needed by 2031. Next slide, please. The important question is, do we really need a third arena? The provincial target for communities to use as a guideline is to have at least 1 ice pad for every 450 registered participants. And at just over 1,000 registrants in 2020, a third ice pad in Wilmot should be built. Whether this trigger calculation is accurate or flawed, Wilmot needs to immediately needs 3 ice pads to support its community recreational needs of now almost 1,400 participants today. In Wilmot, our recreational level boys hockey practice for their 12-year hockey career from the ages of 5 to 17 at 6:30 a.m., 4:30 p.m., and 10 p.m. during the week. This has deterred many of players even registering for hockey. If you're a goaltender, they practice at 7 a.m. Sundays in Wellesley. For competitive hockey players, they have to travel to Stratford for additional skill development practices. We have turned players away recently due to capacity. We've decreased team practice times. We've double booked teams to share practices. We've increased our roster sizes on our hockey teams up to 19 players on some teams, and we've even canceled hosting tournaments throughout the year. I can't imagine how minor hockey or skating would be able to operate when the next subdivision is built and the population increases. Ice can be found at unwanted hours outside of Wilmot that conflicts with the team's current ice time. As a minor hockey organization, we can't offer a program where our kids practice at 6:30 a.m. twice a week or only on weekends. Next slide. As you can see from the photo, there's alternate options at the WRC site that were not presented to council as being feasible. Building 2 separate pads on the far bottom right, shown in purple, could be possible now that reservations for the highway on-ramp have changed. As shown, New Hamburg Hockey has more boys hockey teams than our neighbors with 3 ice pads like Woolwich and Centre Wellington with similar populations. Next slide, please. As user groups, we've waited 10 years for action, and today we ask council to do just that. Now is the time to act and spend money on recreation in our community that so desperately needs it. There are solutions. One solution would be proceed immediately with the RFP and spend the $600,000 to complete a 3rd ice pad for September 2024 without any delay. Finish the design to be shovel ready and concurrently start a plan for a 4th pad to be shovel ready by 2031. If we can't agree on this today, then we can always have a solution 2. We could look at financially supporting Wellesley Township to keep their old vacated Catherine Street Arena operational. Or we could lease the Catherine Street building in Wellesley Township to operate that as Wilmot. The possibility of the Wellesley solutions would be providing immediate primetime ice to Wilmot user groups that so desperately need it until a new 3rd ice pad is built in Wilmot within the next 4 years. Operating a 3rd ice pad costs money, and as mentioned before, Woolwich and others have been doing it since 2009. Will Wilmot prioritize the cost of operating a 3rd arena to catch up to our neighboring townships? Money that is spent should be allocated in the budget today to provide immediate ice utilizing the old Wellesley Arena is money that we should have been spending on community recreation over the past many years. It's money that the studies have recommended we spend. It's money that we will be spending when we build a 3rd ice pad in Wellesley and start operating that building. So let's not wait. Let's make that decision and allocate that money today. I thank you for your time, and I believe Holly Bast from Wilmot Girls Hockey would like to speak as well.
Thank you, Nathan. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening. My name is Holly Bast, and I'm here on behalf of the Wilmot Girls Hockey Association. When the Wilmot Recreation Complex opened in 2007, the Wolverines also celebrated their inaugural season, becoming members of the Ontario Women's Hockey Association. The long hours and hard work of our founding executive members, together with the timely opening of the WRC, allowed us to finally offer female hockey in the Township of Wilmot. In the years that followed this, the Wolverines saw an explosion of interest in our community. When comparing our 2007 registration numbers to our current season, you will see that our membership has grown by over 205%. The Wolverines grew quickly and faced challenges in trying to secure additional ice times to meet the growth in our association. Our current allocation today is a reflection of what we were able to secure over the years as we grew. And our ice scheduler today faces significant challenges now trying to balance our schedule as a result of this. Like our fellow ice user groups, the only option we have had to meet our ice needs has required us to secure ice at facilities outside of the township. But please understand how difficult this process is for each of our groups. We are given no priority when negotiating ice time in other townships. We are simply offered the times that are left over from the needs of their other town user groups. These times offered to us are not within a prime time window. It is very difficult to explain to our members why we need them to travel to other facilities for such poor ice times. We respect the need to make fiscally responsible decisions for the residents of our township, but we also want to be mindful that we are now 5 years past the date Monteith Brown's study identified as the timeline for which we would need a third ice pad in Wilmot. It is imperative that we work towards timely solutions now. Our ice user groups, under the leadership of amazing volunteers, have worked tirelessly for years to manage the shortages. It is time for us to work together for the youth of our community. For decades, we have acknowledged the significant physical and mental health benefits of organized sports participation for our youth. But after working through the challenges of the past 3 years and the COVID-19 pandemic, this has truly been highlighted for us. We owe it to the youth of our community. We need to take action now to provide the recreational opportunities our youth deserve to have access to. We are here and we are ready to work together. Please join us.
Good evening. My name is Christine Snyder, and I'm the president of the New Hamburg Skating Club. I truly appreciate your willingness to allow me to speak tonight on behalf of the club and our membership. I've been a member of the club since 2002 and a board member and executive since 2010. Over the last 13 years, there has been a continual rise in registrations in all of our programs. Our club has averaged a total of 250 to now upwards of over 500 skaters in 2019. This is an increase of 100%, and I also expect this number to continue to rise as our community grows and a desire to call Wilmot home to families with young children. There has not been a shortage of ice for our club until recently, but we have had to change our Saturday schedule to assist in the Hockey Association in holding their Saturday tournaments. These changes means all of our programming needs to be shifted to an earlier time slot on a Saturday so our programming is complete so hockey tournaments can begin. At our ice user meetings with Township each spring, we always try and work together to help one another to obtain the ice that is needed to run our individual organizations. There has never seemed to be enough ice time in the entire 13 years that I've been on the board. Prior to COVID, the New Hamburg Skating Club have always seemed to fill our registrations and our Learn to Skate programs only with a few remaining spots. We would have a few children waiting on a cancellation list, and for whatever reason, there would be a young skater drop out of the program due to various personal reasons, which would then allow the children on the waiting list to be able to skate with us. The current year, however, has been different. We currently have over 40 children on a waiting list. To tell a parent that their little 3 or 4 or 5-year-old child cannot register or learn to skate in this township is extremely difficult. We have recently opened our spring registration that starts in April and runs until the end of May. And in 2 days of registration opening, we're already at 75% capacity. Parents are already wanting to register for summer programs that don't begin until July. Council should also be aware that most of the hockey children in the community have come through the NHSC Learn to Skate program and our Power programs first. The lack of Learn to Skate program availability may in fact influence hockey in the next few years. It truly becomes a domino effect. I would respectfully ask the Township to reconsider their decision to postpone or defer the decision on the additional ice pads for our community. I do realize that we have a new council sitting around the table with huge responsibilities to be mindful of what the township spends on its taxpayers' money. I am grateful for this new team and to what you bring to our community. I would just simply request acknowledgement that things have changed for the NHSC since the gathering of the reports and the data pre-COVID, and maybe take some time to relook at the new data being presented tonight in making a new, well-informed decision. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much, Nathan, Holly, and Christine. I'm going to look to my counselors to see if anyone has questions regarding the presentations. Councillor Dunstall, is that you asking for it?
Through you, Mayor. May I ask one of the directors a question? Director Jackson. I know that there was reference to using the Wellesley Arena, and this is something that's come up before, and I just thought you may want to bring forth what the issues are and if there's a way for us to get around those so that we can use that ice.
Through the mayor, this is certainly not something that we've had any discussions formally with Wellesley, of course. It's difficult for our township to operate a facility in another township. First of all, there's staffing challenges. They are a unionized municipality. We are not. There would be requirements for equipment, such as a new Zamboni. There would be requirements for additional staff. The cost of operating the ice, there would have to be a whole discussion on, is that something that Wellesley would want to share? There's just a lot. So we have not explored in depth those options. It would be very challenging for the township, I would think, to operate in another community, but I would maybe rely on CAO Chambers to comment as well on that. Sorry.
Yeah, I actually think, we really can't comment on that. It's a major undertaking and initiative that would require a lot of analysis. I think Director Jackson has made some key points around the challenges with that. But, pending direction of council, we could provide further investigation into that if you deemed it appropriate.
Through you, Mayor? And if I deem it appropriate, or is that something that has to come through here, that you could at least start the conversation and see if there's any possibility at all? No?
Through you, Mayor. To even be given direction to start the conversation with another community, I think is a bit premature. This is a big ask on the spot. And I think we'd have to discuss as a team more in depth the feasibility of that, with due respect.
Had to ask, thank you.
Councillor Cressman.
Yes. Yes, I'm wondering if the three groups involved could document what their numbers have been over the last, it's hard to say what the baseline was during COVID, but as best they could. I know we had informal discussions with North Dumfries about their historical view about looking at a study on numbers enrolled to get actually a view. Is it growing? Are kids playing soccer more than they are traditionally hockey? And my mind goes back to my four sons, and it was hockey and fastball. But soccer has changed and started to dominate. And so I think good decisions require good information. And I know we had some of that this evening, but I would like to see at least as best you could a documentation if it was pre-COVID and then where the numbers have rebounded after COVID. It would assist us in looking at that.
Councillor Wilkinson.
Through you, Chair. I'd like to be clear and just sort of, in general, make a comment. I think, and I can't speak for the whole council, but in general, we definitely would like to see another facility built. The question is, is it one ice pad? Is it two ice pads? Is it an ice pad with some sort of convertible gymnasium or additional facility in addition to potentially other needs as well? And part of the reasoning behind turning down the RFP was simply that we asked for just a design for a single ice pad, and it was looking at an enormous cost, and it wasn't necessarily addressing everything that needed to be looked at. So I think, in general, the reasoning for putting it on ice, to use Councillor Sadhu's pun, and excuse it, please, is ultimately to save the money, make sure we do it right the first time so that we can look at all potential options and address everything as one, and then issue an RFP to say, give us that design, and then we'll go ahead. The scenario I'd like to personally avoid is ending up in a situation where we spend $15 million now, and then 4 or 5 years from now realize, oh, we needed to build another one. And I look at that report and sometimes think it's trending in that direction. So yes, I'd like to see more stats to show the historical changes over the last decade or so, in addition to more community engagement and hearing, not forever, not for a long time, but a little bit more regarding what are all of the needs. Do we build 2 ice pads? Do we build 1 and then something additional? But that's one line of thinking, and then the other piece is definitely looking at our budget. If you were tuning in earlier, if anybody was tuning in earlier, you'll see that there are some massive shortfalls right now, and we're currently looking at ways that we can make up some ground. And those are the decisions that we're struggling with right now. But I'd like to assure everyone we hear you. We're committed to finding a way to solve this issue. But we just need a little bit more time to stomach it all and come up with a proper decision.
Any additional questions or comments, councillors? Okay, seeing none, I just want to thank Nathan, Holly, and Christine again for joining us and for presenting your information. I do know that you are connected with us over email, so if you are able to gather that additional information and send it along when you can, that would be great. Thank you very much. All right. Sorry, CAO Chambers would like to speak.
I just wanted to ask council if there's any direction at this time that they want to provide to staff, or if you'd like to give it some thought and come back to bring it back to the table. I know when we had the discussion in this matter was considered when Director Jackson's report was tabled to award the RFP, we're sort of left in limbo. So I just wanted to clarify, following this delegation, is there any direction, or would council prefer to take the matter under advisement and find another way to bring it back to the table?
And just to point out, logistically, we can give direction without it being like a motion. It can be asking staff to investigate, whether it be looking at rec facilities across all of Wilmot or look at further community engagement, or we can think about that individually and come back to staff as well. Councillor Wilkinson.
Personally, I think at this time, I'm not ready to commit to anything concrete. I think we need to look at this probably after the budget is finished and have a concrete idea of where we're going. That's my feeling. I think this is something that we should be looking at discussing in Q2 and then moving forward from there. Personally, if anybody differs, please speak now.
Councillor Dunstall.
I was hoping that we could at least start looking at alternatives, something that we could do just to give an immediate relief to these clubs, to do some kind of investigation. I understand that that's a huge task. We're in the middle of budgets, so it may not be doable, but that's my ask.
Councillor Cressman.
So here's the farmer speaking, and I contract services all the time. I guess the question is, could we investigate contracting services provided by the Township of Wellesley? I'm not sure what their long-term plans are. I know my second son was involved in fundraising as president of the Lions Club in Wellesley. And I asked him that, and his quick response is, it's going to cost you. But at the end of the day, I would say maybe we don't provide the personnel. We don't know what their long-term plans are. And at least I would say the opportunity to reach out to them and get some indication what their plans are for the facility that they potentially would operate on our behalf would be something that we could investigate. But
Councillor Martin.
Thank you. Through you, the Mayor. I appreciate Nathan, Holly, and Christine, you coming tonight, and there are at least 2 of us that are meeting with you in a few days to have some further discussion. I certainly would be in favor of giving some direction to ask some of these questions. With all due respect, as CAO Chambers, I realize it's a big ask to consider something like working with Wellesley. At the same time, there is a need, and could we at least ask some questions? What it would look like, what it would cost, and is it a possibility? The three clubs that have brought forward this request see it as a possibility. I know when my daughter was in the Wolverines, they would go to Plattsville, and I don't know if there are any other arenas that are just as close or would also work, but I think considering options would be good. Mm-hmm.
Through you, Mayor. I think that's what I was getting at. You know, that piece was sort of left hanging, and, you know, to put staff on the spot and ask at a council meeting, is that even feasible? You know, Director Jackson off the cuff has provided a bit of a response, but before we would do any sort of detailed investigation on that and spend a lot of work, we could just do sort of a cursory analysis and report back to council to determine whether it's even feasible, and that way we don't lose sight of that piece.
Great. I'm going to go with the consensus of nodding heads that if we could ask that staff look into even just a conversation with Wellesley Township. Are you looking to speak directly?
For a motion.
Oh, all right, sorry.
Through you, Mayor. Can we get a resolution for that and do a formal vote? It would be direction to staff, so I just want to make sure that the rest of council is important.
Sure. Okay. So if we can just get general consensus that that is the direction that council would like to go. So all of those in favor of asking for staff to investigate preliminary. Okay, well, the motion's carried, but I need a mover and a seconder. That is my fault. I'm sorry.
I guess, can I ask a question of
Sure.
procedure, Mayor Salaman? So through you, the Mayor, in response to our clerk, Jeff, I thought I heard the Mayor say that we could give some direction without a formal motion, but are you saying that we need to have a motion in terms of moving forward?
Through you, Mayor, it is better if council can give direction through resolution, because council speaks through resolution, and that gives staff the formal authority to go forward and put in place the actions that we're being told. So it is preferred if we can do a resolution.
So then I'm happy to put forward a motion unless Councillor Dunstall wants to do it. Just want to be friendly. So then I would move that we ask our staff if they are, direct our staff. I put forward a motion that we direct our staff to have a conversation with Wellesley, or if there is any other arena that would be within a reasonable distance based on based on advice from our clubs to see what the possibilities are. That's a bit wordy. I move that we direct our staff to enter into conversation with Wellesley.
Okay, great. And apologies for leading you guys astray. I was going off of my experience at Regional Council of giving staff direction, so sorry for that. But thank you very much for moving that. Seconded by Councillor Dunstall. I'm going to ask everybody, all those in favor again.
Before you do, I just want to be clear that, you know, we're not having detailed conversations with Wellesley. I think it would be more appropriate to say that we do a high-level investigation of the feasibility. You know, I don't want to give the impression that we're just going to go and start discussions about using that facility until we really determine whether it's even possible.
That's fine with me to put high-level investigation. Mm-hmm.
Great. So with those changes, everybody on both sides good? Okay. And all of those in favor? Okay, that passes unanimously. Sorry for some of the back and forth there. Still getting used to things coming up that I haven't had to deal with yet.
Materially consistent, isn't that?
All right, so moving along to our consent agenda, which is item 11 for those following along. Do we have any members who has questions or want to remove items from the consent agenda? If so, please indicate now, as we will not take questions on consent items unless they have been requested to be moved to the regular agenda. Okay, seeing nobody wanting to move items over, then I ask that we follow the recommendation for the consent agenda items 11.1 and 11.2 to be approved. May I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Dunstall, seconded by Councillor Sadhu. All those in favor? And that carries unanimously. Wow. All right. Now into our reports for the evening. So we have report 12.1, which is the pre-budget approval award of contract single axle new and tandem axle replacement, PWE-2023-03. Before we get background on the report, I will read the recommendation and ask to get it on the floor. So the recommendation is that staff be directed to incorporate $340,000 into the 2023 capital budget and $439,000 into the 2024 capital budget for purchase of one new single axle dump truck with snowplow attachments and one replacement tandem axle dump truck with snowplow attachments. And further, that the contract for supply and delivery of one single axle dump truck with snowplow attachments and one tandem axle dump truck with snowplow attachments be awarded to Viking Civies Limited by means of the Canoe Procurement Group of Canada. May I please have a mover? Moved by Councillor Sadhu, seconded by Councillor Cressman. I will now call on the Director of Infrastructure Services, Jeff Mollenhuis, to introduce the report.
Thank you, Mayor. As noted, this is a report asking for pre-budget approval for these two dump truck with plow equipment units. One is for a replacement and one is for a new unit. The primary reason for asking for pre-budget approval at this time is just due to the window to purchase and how long it takes for delivery. You would see in a regular budget process that we would be requesting these units through the normal capital process. But with timing this year, obviously, we're a bit later than we normally would be, so this is just asking for that pre-budget approval to do so. These types of units take typically between 18 and 24 months now to deliver, and with hitting this window now, it will give us at least to 2024. Before the end of 2024, we expect the delivery of that unit. So that's what we're asking for this evening, is that pre-budget approval so we can start that process of procurement. Happy to answer any questions should you have any.
Councillor Dunstall.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I know that we use Canoe, but do we ever check alternate sources? Is that part of the due diligence that we do that as well?
Through you, Mayor, my understanding is the Canoe process is new, and I think we've only had one purchase through that process. Typically in the past we would do an RFP or an RFT, so we would tender it out or we would ask for proposals to be submitted, and typically we would only have, for these types of units, maybe two suppliers that would bid. We actually tendered out, I think it was last year in the summertime, and had no responses just because of the build time and what was already committed to, so we didn't proceed with any awards at that point, but yes, we typically have exercised different procurement processes other than this Canoe process.
Okay, just to familiarize myself with the Canoe process, is there more than one vendor that's suggested, or is it just one?
Through you, Mayor Solomon, to Councillor Dunstall. Yeah, the Canoe procurement program is a joint procurement program for municipalities across all of Canada. Essentially, if you're familiar with previous programs where a vendor of record is established through provincial purchasing programs, Canoe program operates similarly to that, where one or multiple vendors can be identified as certified within the Canoe procurement program. They're ensuring and guaranteeing best prices and obviously quality of services through that program. So to your question, it's not limited to just one vendor. Depending on the product type that's in there, there can be multiple vendors.
Any other questions, councillors? Okay, seeing none, I will now call the vote. So all of those in favor of this recommendation. And that passes unanimously. Now we will move along to agenda item 12.2, land acquisition of 30 Neville Street, New Hamburg, CAO-2023-01. Before we turn it over to our CAO, we will again get the recommendation on the floor. The recommendation is that the report CAO 2023-01 be approved, and further, that the capital costs for the acquisition and other matters incidental to the purchase of 30 Neville Street in the amount of approximately $3.6 million be debt financed through development charges, and further, that the Mayor and Chief Administrative Officer be authorized to execute all necessary agreements and documents required to complete the transaction for the purchase of 30 Neville Street, New Hamburg. May I please have a mover? Moved by Councillor Cressman, seconded by Councillor Wilkinson. And I will now turn it over to our Chief Administrative Officer, Sharon Chambers, to introduce her report.
Thank you, Mayor. And the staff report before you this evening recommends the purchase of 30 Neville Street, New Hamburg for township purposes, specifically a Parks and Facilities Operations Center, Fire Department Administration Headquarters, and potential future site of Fire Station 3, New Hamburg. The property is currently owned by Nature's Alpine. In mid-January, staff were made aware that the property at 30 Neville Street in New Hamburg was listed for sale through Royal LePage, and felt the property and existing building could potentially meet a number of future needs within the 10-year capital plan and result in significant savings by utilizing an existing facility and thereby avoiding high construction costs. There was a high potential to locate other township facilities and services at this location. Staff viewed the property and subsequently took a report to a closed meeting on January 19th to present the opportunity to council and receive direction to negotiate the purchase of the property, which was approved. Nature's Alpine and the township have agreed upon a purchase price of $3.5 million, conditional upon the township conducting appropriate due diligence and pending negotiation of an 18-month leaseback provision to Nature's Alpine. In order to complete the transaction, the township must waive the conditions set out in the agreement of purchase and sale by March 2nd, 2023, and finalize the terms of the leaseback. And the township solicitor is assisting us with the preparation of that lease agreement at this time. The transaction will be completed 45 days after the township waives those conditions. One of the conditions was to do a condition assessment on the facility, and staff engaged Englobe Corporation to perform an inspection related to architecture, roofing, structural, building electrical, and mechanical systems to assess the general condition of the property and to determine any deficiencies that may exist. The report provided a list of recommended remedial work and budgetary costs required over a 10-year period, with an approximate cost of $152,000. Acquiring the property at 30 Neville Street, New Hamburg for a purchase price of $3.5 million with an existing building and full services would represent approximately $3 million in savings, excluding any additional renovations required to meet the needs of the township operations. By co-locating other township facilities and services at that location, including fire administration and the new Hamburg Fire Station, township archives, there's a likelihood of significantly more savings in the capital program in the future. And at that, I will turn it over to Director Jackson to speak to how this facility meets her needs. Chief Leeson is not present with us this evening, but if you have any questions, we will attempt to answer those as well in his absence. And Director Kelly may have some additional comments on the financial impact and how this purchase will be funded. So I'll turn it over to Director Jackson now.
Thank you, Sharon. So with respect to the Parks and Facilities operation, as outlined in the report, the department is currently operating out of the back of the Wilmot Recreation Complex with no storage space for materials such as sand, chips for trail maintenance. Equipment is outside. All of our trucks are outside, and we have had numerous thefts and issues with that location. When a report was done, I believe I brought it last year with from Monteith Brown, it indicated that a separate space outside of that location was ideal for this working group. So currently, that team is working out of an area that was intended for arena operations. The lunchroom, locker room, supervisor office is all in an open area where vehicles, chemicals, and equipment storage occurs as well. So it's far from ideal from a health and safety perspective. We also have 2 of our HVAC staff members who work on all of our township facilities, working out of pool storage space that was intended for the pool operations, plus taking up 2 other storage rooms for all of their parts and equipment. So all of these services could be located out of that one location, plus the addition of the other synergies with the fire department as outlined by CAO Chambers. And it would be an ideal location for the staff to work out of. We would be able to have all of our operations and equipment stored indoors so that theft reduction is realized, and overall the number of office spaces and other opportunities with that property really make it an ideal location for this department, and of course, as mentioned, the other possibilities. So I'm happy to answer any questions specifically, but with respect to the building itself, it's over 11,000 square feet of space. It was recommended in the Monteith Brown that we needed at least 10,000 square feet, so there's a little bonus there. There's adequate electrical servicing and a fully fenced and gated yard that is ideal for our services. There's loading docks on that building, which is ideal for receiving parts, and commercial garage entrance, as mentioned, as well. So certainly a lot of, almost all of the items identified in the Monteith Brown report have been, are also available in this location and would be ideal for this operation to move to. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much for the report. Do we have any questions, councillors? Councillor Wilkinson.
Yeah, through you, Chair. Looking at the financial considerations here, it's been identified that there's a significant cost saving with our planning, and I'm wondering, are the same savings realized if the Fire Hall number 3 is unable to be located on this site?
I can start through you, Mayor. We determined that on its own, there would be approximately, $3.5 million in savings just for the Parks and Operations facility. So on its own, that's significant. We've done a preliminary assessment of the site, and we do feel that it will be suitable for fire's needs. And so that number just continues to grow as we look at the capital requirements for that facility. We don't have to purchase an additional property, which is significant. They would be able to utilize the upper floor of the building for fire administration offices, so that wouldn't have to be constructed in the new fire facility. So there's just a real high potential for additional future savings. As we noted in the report, we are struggling for space in this municipal administration complex. We had in the budget, or in the capital plan, requirements for a space needs study. Having fire vacate this building delays the need for that and frees up more space for administration use. So it's there's just such a high potential for additional savings, and that number could grow significantly. We can certainly report back to council when we know more.
Any other questions, council? Okay, seeing none, I will now call the vote. All of those in favor of the recommendation, and that passes unanimously. This evening, we do not have any correspondence or new bylaws, nor do we have any notice of motions. We do have some announcements, though. I want to start with one. I have to apologize. At our last meeting, I did not introduce our new clerk, who's on my left here, so I just wanted to quickly take this chance to introduce Jeff Bunn. He has joined our team recently. Also local in the area, and we're really excited to have you on board. So congratulations on the new position, and we look forward to continued work with you. And I did also want to make note that next week, both the Legion is going to be hosting a pancake fundraiser, as well as the Wilmot Youth Action Council is doing a pancake fundraiser. I believe there are other events throughout the community going on, but be sure to check those out if you're interested. And also on the 22nd, our Heritage Committee is hosting our first Wilmot Heritage Day. So that will be taking place at the Wilmot Rec Center. Again, details can be found online, or you can reach out to the Township office for more information. And I also have councillors who have announcements to make. So Councillor Dunstall, please.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I just wanted to remind everyone that February 25th is the coldest night of the year walk. Wilmot Walkers, which is made up of some of your councillors here, have issued a challenge to Wellesley councillors. To date, I have not heard anything from those Wellesley councillors. I would really like to hear something from them. Right now, I think we're at about $1,300 that we've raised, so I challenge them to raise that and then some. And if you cannot participate, donate. And if you cannot donate, please join us and cheer us on. Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Cressman.
Just a correction, and I don't know if it was just misspoken, that this isn't the first heritage. There was multiple ones in the past.
My apologies, yes. And also a reminder, I was going to announce it next week at our ad hoc budget meeting, but I got a note sent over to me, so I will announce it now so no one thought that I forgot. But February 22nd is also Pink Shirt Day, so for anti-bullying, to show your support, wear a pink shirt. I believe we will all be adorning pink that day in some capacity, and just a reminder that that is happening. Any additional announcements? Councillor Wilkinson.
Yeah, would just like to make an announcement. There's a ton of events happening on Family Day at the Wilmot Rec Center, so I would encourage you to look into what they are. I believe there's some free swims, free skates as well, supplied by some local businesses, and I know the Baden Community Association upstairs will be handing out treats and hosting some games as well. So I would encourage the families to get out. I know I will be bringing mine, and look forward to seeing everyone there.
Beautiful. Thank you. All right. Seeing no more announcements, we're going to try and get this done in the next 3 minutes so we can still be in an hour. So there was no closed meeting. We have no business arising from closed. The confirmatory bylaw recommendation is that, as attached to this agenda, be read for a first, second, and third time and finally passed in open council. May I please have a mover? Moved by Councillor Dunstall, seconded by Councillor Martin. All those in favor? That carries unanimously. And finally, adjournment. The recommendation is that we do adjourn our meeting at 7:58 p.m. To meet again on the call of the mayor. May I please have a mover? Moved by Councillor Cressman, seconded by Councillor Martin. All those in favor? And we're adjourned.